Without any further delay, I would like to welcome to the stage the City Council, the Pasadena representatives. So I think it'll be Steve that's going to be talking first. Okay, so Steve, the CEO of Pasadena, as he is the city manager, we're going to be starting us off, and then we're going to be hearing from Terry and Eric later on. Please, warm welcome for Steve.
Good morning, everybody. I got to make sure where I'm at. I feel like I'm in the ice house. This is like open night mic. I want to recognize someone who's really important to the city, Gandalf. Oh, and it's with Councilmember Wilson. All right, that constitutes my comedy act. That's why I'm the city manager. So good morning, everybody. I am the city manager. I guess you could consider myself the chief executive officer for the city. The city's various departments report to me. We're a full-service city in Pasadena. We're really a fuller service city in Pasadena. We provide all kinds of things that you don't even see in some other cities. We're one of only 3 cities in the state with its own health department. We have 10 libraries. We have 8 fire stations. We have a lot of services in Pasadena. You'll probably hear from the mayor some of the challenges that we're facing to maintain those services, but I won't want to get dismal right now. So I was asked to talk a little bit about technology, and that may seem somewhat antithetical to government. What's interesting about technology and government is, as of the last few years, technology's been fairly disruptive to a lot of the things that government does, which is often regulate. So think about short-term rentals, think about Uber and Lyft. Now with different bike sharing and scooter sharing platforms, it seems that the local governments are kind of chasing these new technologies. We move slowly, but we plod along methodically, and ultimately we come up with some level of regulations that allow these new innovations to occur in our community, which is what our citizens want, but have some balance in terms of regulation to make sure that they're reasonable. So I'm happy that not that long ago the council approved some short-term rental regulations, and that's been in place. Last week we got our first check from the home share group. It was $1,215. And we put that in the kitty, and that's a start. Now we're currently thinking about, well, how do all these little ride-share scooter bike platforms fit in? If you walked around town, you see that we have an arrangement with the MTA, but those have the stations. There's a lot of new platforms that are stationless, and you've heard in a lot of other communities in Southern California, some cities are embracing it. Some cities, I understand Coronado is driving around scooping them all up and impounding them all. So again, government has to figure out how to come to a new equilibrium with the technology. It wasn't that long ago that we implemented our little citizen service app. Hopefully all of you have that on your smartphone. It's been fantastic for the, don't shake your head, yeah, because you're gonna go and you're gonna put that on your phone. That's been great for us. It's revolutionized the service that we provide. When people see things that are dumped or graffiti or a tree that needs to be trimmed, they zap a picture, they send it to us, it creates a work order, we can track it, and it's a fantastic way for us to allocate our work. So I would appreciate all of you actually using that, and that's one area where technology is really helping us out. In terms of other things going on in the city, I think Eric's going to touch on it for me because I apologize. I have a little crisis I have to get back to at City Hall, so that's my job. The mayor goes around, he cuts the ribbons, he kisses the babies, he gets all the accolades. I clean it, I take out the trash. That's okay. I will be at the Ice House on Thursday night. No, so. But Eric's going to talk about some of the many events coming on, up this summer in Pasadena. We have the second year of the Arroyo Seco weekend. Who's got their tickets? Yeah, that's what I'm hearing. So you need to go out and get your tickets. And we have of course, the Taylor Swift concert. 2 nights in the Rose Bowl, that's a pretty big deal. I have to fly a couple of nieces down from Seattle to see that. But there's always something going on in Pasadena, events large and small. You can always find something here. If you have an issue shocking it may occur, if you have an issue, a problem with the city, you can call my office. One of the best things about our city government is we're small enough that you can actually get to the city manager or get to the staff person that's responsible for the thing you're interested in. Yesterday, someone complained about some furniture that was dumped in an alley. An hour later, we had it picked up. That's a level of service you are not going to see in most other cities. And we take our pride in doing that. So if you have issues, I'm easy to find. I'm right there on the web. You can get a hold of me, and I can steer you in the right direction, or in most cases, just take care of your problem. With that, I do need to run away. It's the Pasadena Citizen Service app.
Go to cityofpasadena.net. You'll find it there, the link. So.
Okay. So thank you all. I'd like to come back for another Friday and have some coffee, but I got to get back. So.
Well done. Thank you. All right, good morning. Thank you, Steve. So we'll show you some images. I'll try and go through these quickly because we want to share a variety of things with you that might spark some conversation later. And again, we'll follow up with the Mayor Tornek with some Q&A and some other overview issues. So I'll start out with some highlights, go through some companies, and then some development activity. So in Pasadena, we're busy. We've issued a fair number of business licenses this last quarter. This is for Q1. Unemployment rate is 3.9%. That's a good number compared to the LA. We've got building permits going, and our office vacancy rate is pretty strong. You can see with commercial vacancy rates, office and flex are at healthy levels. You don't want it being too tight because then you can't find any space. Our ground level storefront vacancy rate is also around 4%, which is very strong compared to surrounding cities. We have a range of business districts in town. So we're in Old Pasadena now, but we have our civic area. We've got the Playhouse, Lamanda Park. Just encourage you to get familiar with all these other places to conduct business. But each of those districts, of course, has a range of jobs. Pasadena, we're fortunate that we have a diverse set of employment sectors. Keeps our city kind of moving forward in a steady way. We're not fully dependent on one sector or another. But ultimately, jobs available right now, surprisingly, when you look at the top cities in LA County, Pasadena is number 2 with the number of jobs available. So that is, shows the strength of our economy, but also the fact that employers might be scrambling to find talent. Again, Santa Monica, Torrance, El Segundo, not surprisingly top that list too. And we're in a good position in Pasadena because the sectors that I mentioned earlier, this is compared to LA County. It's kind of a wonky chart, but you want to be in the upper right-hand sector with the sectors that are growing and employing. So with the number of companies, I'm just going to go through this quickly. These are some of the technology companies that are hiring in Pasadena. OpenX is on Walnut and Lake. They are getting together, people buying ads, selling ads, but doing very well. Bluebeam really is you can call them a spin-off of JPL, first working with engineering companies, layering PDFs so that these engineering companies can communicate. They're really into architecture and architects now, submitting plans to cities. Everbridge is dealing with critical responses to their employees and different community just to get apps so that if there is an emergency, people get notified quickly. Stir is an art center spin-off with stand-up smart desks. Tetra Tech is headquartered here in Pasadena but has 16,000 employees worldwide. Civil engineering firm, but their specialty is really in water and environmental cleanup. Spokio is on Los Robles, really aggregating public records and social media posts. They have been on a strong growth pattern as well. IDT is on North Fair Oaks at Mountain. They're doing high-speed camera work. Astronomy, I have 2 here, but they're big engineering groups in town, both one related to Caltech, which is the TMT project, building a very large telescope in the northern hemisphere. Carnegie-led team is dealing with the Giant Magellan Telescope, the Southern Hemisphere. There are 3 very large telescopes being built around the world, and 2 of them are being designed in Pasadena. It's just remarkable. Miso Robotics, you may have heard of Flippy, dealing with over here at Cali Burger, flipping burgers robotically, and they're a growing Caltech spinoff group. Strobe is a group out in East Pasadena. They just sold to GM their technology with LiDAR. So you have all these automated vehicles moving forward in the marketplace, but the actual technology of scanning the environment uses their technology, and they've been working with aerospace and with JPL over the course of the last decade. Virtualistics, melding artificial intelligence, VR and AR with big data. They're on South Lake near Caltech. We have a helmet design and manufacturing group. They have their design and kind of sales office here in Pasadena. Manufacturing's off-site, but they take advantage of the talent here in Pasadena with Art Center. Idea Lab continues to spit out great groups. AI Pod is autonomous vehicles. You've got Oben dealing with avatars. You've got Uber Media that's combining demographic and market data with even locational information based on cell phone use. So this is an image of where cell phones are used during the day in Pasadena, and here's an image of where those cell phones sleep at night. So it follows people to kind of their patterns of living. So that quick snapshot on some of those highlighted businesses, many more. Come see me if you want to kind of share your story. We have several other people here from the city today with Ruth and Michelle, and we can take your thoughts. In fact, you've got something on your seat. We'd like to hear from you. If you have a quote to share of your experience here in Pasadena or some thoughts, please write it down on that card, and we'd be happy to take a look. Development activity, we wanted to highlight just some of the bigger projects in town. The Chen Neuroscience Center at Caltech is going to be moving forward to construction soon. We've got the Huntington Medical Research Institute that just completed their lab on South Fair Oaks. Shriners Hospital, moved from Los Angeles, is open and running. Kaiser Permanente School of Medicine. Kaiser is the largest employer of doctors and nurses in California, but they've realized that they need to be smart long-term about how they educate their staff. And so the School of Medicine is going to be located here in Los Robles and Green. That's under construction now. Doheny Eye Institute is moving from USC campus to Pasadena on Orange Grove. Culinary School, we had the Le Cordon Bleu for a number of years. They closed down, but we then got 2 to replace that space. So we've got a group, ICE, out of New York, to take up most of that space, and the new cooking school also on the north side of Colorado. Art Center College of Design, still a premier school of design internationally. They have doubled down into their Pasadena location by moving forward with a master plan for South Raymond, just down the street here. They have their main campus on a hill above the Rose Bowl, but most of their new dorm rooms and studio space will be at the end of the Pasadena Freeway. Exciting development there. Hotels, Hyatt, Duzit, and we've got another couple proposals in East Colorado. Office space, just a couple blocks to the west here on the Parsons block, new development occurring. In the Playhouse District, again, we don't have a lot of office development because as a trend, people are needing less office space. We're in a space that really reflects that. So we've got some new development, but I think we also need that elbow room for people that are growing and succeeding. So we're happy to see some of that. And even the Southern California Public Radio, they're expanding their space on South Raymond. Alexandria Real Estate Equities, they are the largest owner of lab space internationally. They have their headquarters here in Pasadena. Just next to City Hall, they're building this headquarters structure. And another proposal on Lake Avenue where where Coco's is. So if you like Coco's, you better start eating there now, because in another year that might be gone. But ultimately, the development pattern in Pasadena is intended to occur near light rail stations. We've been in an upswing in investment for probably longer than we thought, and we, through our general plan, really have intended for development to occur near the light rail stations, protecting the single-family neighborhoods, and making sure that we are smart about our growth pattern. I won't go through these, but we've got a lot of housing. Most of what you see being developed in Pasadena is new condos or new apartments. So this is an image of what is going to be along Fair Oaks in front of the Parsons building. Along Colorado, we have higher density development with housing and infill. These are, again, all images of development that is occurring near those light rail stations in Pasadena, hopefully helping provide a check to the increased and continuing challenge of affordable housing in Southern California. Part of that equation is just providing more supply. So I'll finish there. Here's an image on Lincoln Avenue. We've got some exciting things happening in Northwest Pasadena as well. But just to do my job of plugging Pasadena, we're fortunate that we have really a lot of people recognizing us for things like our walkability score is one of the best in Southern California. The fact that we have light rail stations, we've been recognized for being business friendly, being a top digital city, being one of the best college towns in the country, being a fun city, having we're one of the best mid-sized cities. You see a trend of investment not always occurring in millennials, especially not going to the very big cities, but the mid-sized cities provide a nice balance to live work. We of course have our disproportionate number of Nobel Prize winners, quality of life issues, so that goes on. Shopping, dining. Steve mentioned events. Bold Pasadena is happening here in a week or two. That's a fun experience here in Old Pasadena. Taylor Swift, Space Tech, big international soccer matches at the Rose Bowl. Alien Con, for some of you, might be fun at the convention center. COSPAR is the international event, 5,000 people coming to Pasadena, all the very top tier people involved with astronomy internationally coming to Pasadena. And that's something that we kind of pride ourselves in. Pasadena is really the center of the universe when it comes to studying the universe. But then you go down to Jackalope Summer Nights, Ed Sheeran and Jay-Z and Beyonce. So we do have a nice range of things. Even today, we've got the Digital Tech and Entrepreneur Career Expo at the Convention Center. That's happening right now. I got a specific request from our Rose Bowl to plug our half marathon. There are corporate sponsorships that might be appealing to some in the crowd. That's happening in January. So we encourage you to be smart, innovative, and fit. And so I'll end there, hand the mic over to Mayor Tornek. And again, I'm available after this, and if you have follow-up questions, our staff is always available at this phone number here, 626-744-4660. Thanks for your attention, and Mayor Tornek.
Thank you. It's a lot of stuff. Thank you for being here and for inviting us. Pasadena, as you just, this whirlwind tour, which, and I thought I knew most of what was going on, but there's some news to me in there. Pasadena is an incredibly diverse place in terms of the kinds of things we do and the things that are happening here. It's really astonishing. And it's really just a small city. I mean, this is a small town, 140,000 people, but it plays big. And that's because we have these institutions, some of which Eric referenced. I had the opportunity to travel to China again last year, and I asked people what they knew about Pasadena, and I expected to hear about JPL and the Rose Parade and some of the other things you saw. And what they knew about was the Big Bang Theory. and it sort of offended me. I mean, I thought, wow, you guys know that's not real, right? I mean, it's. But then I thought, that's okay. I mean, it doesn't really matter exactly what as long as they know who we are. And people know Pasadena through the lens of their own experience. I mean, some people know it for the museums, and some people know it, as I say, for the big events at the Rose Bowl, the flea market, kids space. I mean, it goes on and on. But the thing that strikes me about Pasadena is that in spite of the fact that we have all this activity, and I'm sure you'll be asking me about it in a minute, some of which you may not like or think may be excessive, it really, in a lot of ways, remains a kind of a small town. There is a small town feeling. You travel around the city and you see people that you know. And we haven't lost that feeling, and I think that's what people are concerned about. They're afraid that with all this kind of intense activity, that we'll lose the character of what makes Pasadena a special place. And that's really what the city council and the city government, that's the tightrope that we're walking, is trying to encourage development and innovation and opportunity, and at the same time maintain that special quality. Pasadena has the highest number of, in terms of per capita, we have the most restaurants, the most Teslas, and the most nonprofits in the country, maybe the world. We also apparently have the most telescope production. But the what's interesting about that is that yesterday we had a breakfast. We had the mayor's prayer breakfast. There were 600 people there. It was a sold-out event. And then in the afternoon, I went to I can't avoid all these meal meetings. I'm getting fatter and fatter. But at noon, the Kiwanis Club, sort of an old line service organization, some of you don't know about it all. Kiwanis Club has been in Pasadena for 98 years. And they had a luncheon honoring the kids, the outstanding kids from all of the middle schools and the high schools in the city. A very kind of small town, wonderful event. And then at night I went to a dinner welcoming new people that had come to town, from new CEOs for the hospital, for Alibaba, and for City of Hope, all of whom are living in the city. And so this thing, it's just a fascinating place to be, because there's this energy and tradition. These nonprofit organizations, the city, I mean, all the things that Eric is doing in economic development and that Steve is doing in terms of managing the city can't do everything that needs doing, and really shouldn't do some of them. I mean, we're not nimble enough, we're not organized to do it. And these nonprofit organizations, which have been around since before the city was even founded, fill that gap. And really kind of are a great indicator of the fact that people in this town are committed to their neighbors and to the community. It sounds hokey and sort of old-fashioned, but people, it keeps people from feeling isolated in terms of, and having a community identity, feeling good about your city, as imperfect as it certainly is, really does contribute a lot in terms of what makes this a special place. So I can tell you that although I've had to shed a lot of activities that I wasn't anxious to get out of, being mayor of Pasadena is really a lot of fun, and it's a tremendous challenge. I learn something new essentially every day, and as Steve said, we try to deal with I mean, we've got the same problems that the big cities do. Most of the time, we can actually do something about it. We can't necessarily fix it entirely, but we can at least chip away at it and make a difference. So I hope that those of you who live in the city enjoy that. I'm delighted that people come to the city to work and to shop and to eat and contribute to the revenue that we need. But I appreciate the opportunity to meet with you. I see this group actually is representative of some of the diversity that we have in our city in almost any way you slice it. So with that, I think I'll stop and take your questions, because that's what most of you are probably here for. Thank you.
Mayor Tornek, everyone. I just want to say I moved from Chicago back in 2003, and I have never been able to leave Pasadena ever since. This is such a charming, community-based city. It does have that big city feel in terms of industry and opportunities, things to plug into. It's got a little bit of everything, but still has that small-town charm where, yes, you do run into people that you see on the streets and strike up conversations candidly and dynamically. Yeah, it's an amazing place to live. I really love it, and as hard as I tried to leave, it was inescapable. This is such a great place, and I truly appreciate the city representatives that are piecing it together and trying to make this place an even better place to live and be. So we're going to open up to Q&A now. If you have a question, raise your hand. John will walk around with the mic. We're going to save storytelling and comments for offline. Mayor Tornek, will you be hanging out with us a little bit after the presentation is over? Okay, cool. So if you want to share a story, please do it afterwards. Questions now. Thanks.
Who has a question? Eric mentioned some of the businesses that have started in Pasadena. I think we should also recognize Panda Express or Panda Group and Blaze Pizza. We had the Wetzels here I think a few months ago talking about how they were at a restaurant, came up with this concept of Blaze Pizza, and now they're doing gangbusters. Yeah. Do you have any comments as far as how these types of businesses, why they came to Pasadena or how they got started and became so successful? I mean, obviously the talent and ideas were great, but the team that they had to build out to handle that kind of growth certainly is very challenging.
Right. Well, with the Wetzel Group in particular, it started with pretzels, but they grew their skills around franchising. So they realized that between the pretzels and the Blaze Pizza and some other things that they've tried to start, that's their talent. And we're fortunate in Pasadena that we're not only kind of rich in the talent that we have immediately in our city, but our kind of relative central location to the rest of the LA metro area between Los Angeles and Orange County really helps bring another layer of wealth to what we can provide to the business community. So that's just one example and a positive one of how that works.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Does anybody have it back here?
Thank you. Good morning. Thank you for being here. My question is, I know a lot of this development is being dictated by the state, but what is the city doing specifically to make sure we have enough water for all these new businesses and homes or condos that are being built, as well as what are we doing about traffic? I don't know if anybody was on South Orange Grove yesterday, but I needed to go to Lake in Colorado, and it took me over a half an hour. So I'd like to understand what the city's doing about that as well.
So in terms of traffic, which is used to be the #1 issue that we got questioned about, now homelessness is, traffic is a byproduct of development. And of course, a big part of the traffic in Pasadena is traffic that's just passing through. It really doesn't have to do with the development pattern in the city specifically, but just people going from one place to another through Pasadena. It's an inevitable byproduct of growth. I will say that the city, what we're seeing in terms of some of the new housing development is people who it's hard to believe, people of my generation don't believe it, but they don't want to drive. And they don't drive. And part of the reason they're occupying some of these new buildings that Eric zoomed through is that they have the opportunity to live and work and actually walk or ride their bikes to work. So that each one of these units is not developing the number of vehicle trips that buildings used to be. I was the planning director when I came to Pasadena in 1982, and I've seen the number of vehicle trips per unit, which is the metric of how we measure what's going on in terms of what a new development may generate, continue to drop because people are not just jumping in their cars and driving to work. Traffic, interestingly, apart from the rush hour, mostly the PM rush hour, we measure the vehicle travel times cross town in both directions, east and west and north and south. And the vehicle travel times have really not increased. I know you can't believe that, very dramatically. That doesn't mean that you won't confront, a traffic condition, particularly in the PM peak. But traffic is not as bad as people think it is. All that notwithstanding, if you're sitting at a light, it's hard to be convinced of that. Or if you're waiting for the gold line to go across on Del Mar, you can't be convinced of that. But we're making an effort to get people out of their cars and remembering what it is to walk and ride a bike. But traffic will continue to grow, although not at the rate that people fear. In terms of water, interestingly, Pasadena is using less water now, in spite of being a bigger city, than we did in 1942. Most of the new development, because of the new technology and because they don't have big green lawns, don't consume a lot of water. They're much more water efficient. And people, have, even in the single-family homes, have sort of wised up. And because we've increased the prices and water isn't as cheap as it used to be, people are using a lot less water even in the single-family dwellings. So our water consumption is actually in pretty good shape. And there isn't an immediate supply problem. That's not going to be the limitation in terms of limiting new development. And one final point, people think that development activity in Pasadena is really exploding. The reality is, and Eric flashed through it in one of those slides, the city's general plan decided to concentrate new development, new multifamily development, on a very limited portion of the city, mostly downtown and in the transit-adjacent locations. So we're in the middle of a development boom, and all that new development is being concentrated in a relatively small area, so it looks like the whole city is being covered with apartments. In fact, more than 80% of the city's land area, you can't build multifamily dwellings or commercial stuff. So that the single-family neighborhoods won't look any different 25 years from now than they did 25 years ago. But because you see all this development being focused in a relatively limited land area, you sort of extrapolate in your mind and just assume that the whole city is being covered with apartments. Our rate of growth is less than 1% a year. So in spite of the fact that we have exciting new development, the numbers just are not big.
Thanks so much. I'm so proud of the educational reputation that Pasadena holds, and as the mom of 2 little kids, I have the benefit of knowing some of the really cool stuff that's happening, especially in our public elementary schools, dual language immersion, arts programs, whatnot. For the entrepreneurs, especially in this room, who may not have children, what advice can you give for supporting our local public schools, elementary, middle, whatnot? How can we build our educational reputation back to the earliest ages?
Oh, that's wonderful. I have a stake in the Pasadena Unified School District. I have 2 grandchildren that are attending PUSD schools, and my son is a teacher at Marshall High School. So I'm fully vested in the public education system in Pasadena, which has gotten sort of an unfair rap. The public schools, that's what this event was at the Kiwanis yesterday, was recognition of these extraordinary middle school and high school kids and their counselors and their teachers. The school district really does a good job, and kids can get a really, and I know that my grandchildren are flourishing there. Pasadena has had a history of great private education. 40% of the kids in Pasadena go to private schools. And that's always been true. That wasn't just a function of busing or integration or anything. The city has just always had a very heavy-duty, wonderful private school education system. But the public schools are terrific too. What they're suffering from is a kind of almost bizarre and unintelligible state funding arrangement. If you were trying to run your business that way, you'd fail in 6 months because there's no predictability at all in terms of year to year what their income will be. They're entirely since Prop 13, they're entirely at the mercy of state action. Pasadena does have a responsibility of educating special needs kids and foster kids, and they have a disproportionate number of those, but they don't get concomitant revenue to support those. So in November, the City Council has decided to put on the ballot an increased sales tax, which is not something that we do lightly. And a third of that, 3/4 of a cent, half of it would go to the, half a cent would go to the city, and the remaining quarter would go to the PUSD because they need more money to do their job. And that's something that I'm going to be supporting vigorously. I hope you will too. But for those of you that have school-age children or approaching school-age children, you should investigate the PUSD because I think it does a great job. And for those of you that don't have children, don't want children, there are a variety of volunteer organizations, PEN and PEF, the Pasadena Educational Foundation, that you can volunteer. I mean, you can be a mentor. You can go into a school and read to a kid, which is a great, satisfying thing to do. There are lots of volunteer opportunities at the Pasadena Unified School District, and I would urge you to participate in that. You can't have a great city without a great public school system. And so even though the schools are not directly the responsibility of the city government, it's an independently elected body, I have a very significant commitment on a personal level, but also as the mayor in terms of making sure that we support the public schools.
Yes. Yes, June Davidson. Thank you so much. That was extremely interesting. Now, Ivanka Trump is sitting on $50 million for women entrepreneurs. What can you do to help us bring our share in for women leadership development?
I don't know. I really don't know what that's about.
There you go.
Thanks, Mayor. 10-year resident of Pasadena, and I love it. And I know you said most of the development is happening out of a specific area, but if you happen to be someone like me who lives kind of in the core of all the development, I'm wondering, is there any relief in sight? Because it feels like it's great having a medical school and all these things being built, but I'm nonstop construction in my neighborhood. So will there be any relief? And also, is there any plan to kind of keep the cost of housing rents down because they seem to be kind of headed towards like San Francisco prices? Thank you.
You know, that's a perfect question. I mean, I don't know if you understand the oxymoron that you've just built. So on the one hand, you said, is there any relief from development? Yeah. And then you said, can we keep the prices down? What's going to keep the prices down is not having less development. I mean, the way it works in the marketplace is that if there's less supply, you know, it tends to drive the prices up. I love that question. Well, the relief in terms of the and I wasn't trying to, you know, make light of it, because I had a neighbor across the street that spent 1.5 years remodeling their house, and I thought I'd never survive that. But the reality is that the boom is going to stop. Those of us that have been, I mean, my career was in real estate. We are going through this intense and sustained development boom, and the music will stop. And all of a sudden, we'll be looking at each other and saying, why aren't there any building permits being issued? And what happened to all the development? And why doesn't anybody want to build anything? We've been through that. All of us that understand real estate know how cyclical it is. We have a sort of an informal pool at City Hall about how long that the boom is going to last. The current favorite seems to be about 18 months or 2 years, and it'll quiet down in a hurry. But we do, all kidding aside, make an effort to try and limit the imposition of noise on people. We have pretty strict limits, and we try to enforce it pretty vigorously in terms of the hours of construction. But in terms of affordability, which is a whole other issue, we can't control the marketplace. I mean, we're in the middle of a rising tide of rents in the region and really in the state that Little Pasadena has very little influence over. We have what we call an inclusionary housing ordinance, which means that every new unit, every new project that's built, 15% of those units have to be affordable. And they either have to build them on-site or off-site, or they have to contribute an in lieu fee to build it someplace else. But it's a drop in the bucket in terms of demand. I mean, we've delivered, I think, through that program about 500 units over the past 6 or 8 years of affordable housing, and the demand is much greater than that. And I mean, we have 60,000 units in Pasadena, just to give you a sense of the size of the issue. And rents are escalating. There are people collecting signatures on a rent control petition because they think that'll solve the problem. It won't solve the problem. It will exacerbate the problem. But they're going to get the signatures on the ballot, and we'll have yet another campaign in November around rent control. But I understand people's frustration. There are people that have lived in Pasadena for generations that are being priced out. And that is a crisis, and that's why the state of California keeps trying to override local zoning regulations, because they feel the cities are impediments to getting additional housing built. In Pasadena, we've tried to do our fair share. We've built a substantial number of new units, but this is a gigantic regional problem, and we're all doing our best to grapple with it.
Time for one more question. Yeah.
I'm the CEO of a tech company, and this afternoon I'm meeting with the City of Los Angeles Economic Development Department because they have 4 separate programs that provide paid internships to tech companies for non-traditional workforce, young, returning to the workforce, older, and homeless opportunities. Does Pasadena have anything equivalent to that?
I'm going to defer to the guy who actually knows the answer.
So we try. So we have, for instance, the programs with the Bioscience Collaborative. So we've got an effort to try and subsidize space for entrepreneurs that are into the science side of things. We work with Innovate Pasadena, and this, we've got efforts to try and make entrepreneurship attractive here. That we know of companies that have programs, but I don't think we have an active tech entrepreneurship or internship program. We do have an internship program, like at the PCC level. So talk to me after. I want to hear kind of what your interest is, and I'm sure we can find some local match, even though it may not be labeled the same way as LA's is.
Actually, the the Foothill Workforce Development, which is on Green near PCC, 2 blocks west of there, they provide subsidies for job training. So you might want to look into that.